Seals play a vital role in balancing marine ecosystems. They help regulate fish populations, they aid the energy transfer of nutrients around the oceans, and they also help increase the structural complexity of the marine environment. So the research we're conducting at SeaMonitor has two primary objectives. First of all, we want to assess the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs. There are two types of seals native to UK and Irish waters, the grey seal and the harbour seal. Both these species are protected under national and European laws. Our work here focuses on harbour seals, the populations of which have been declining recently at a number of sites across the UK and Ireland. So we're really keen to know how these animals do once they've been released. And then the second objective is to have a look at where they go and if they interact with humans, so we can better try to manage activities in the sea with respect to important areas for the seals.
So our rehabilitation programme is designed to give seals the best chance of survival when they go back to the wild. So this is Puppy, is the first one of the season. So she's a harbour seal, this is when we'd expect them to come in, sort of June through August. So this one's nose is a little bit dry, it's probably not been fed by mum for a little while. We can still see the umbilical cord, so it's probably only a couple of days old at most. We've just weighed her just now, she's about 8 kilos. She wandered quite a long way from the shore, she was on her own, so mum had definitely left her. She's a little bit underweight, but otherwise she's looking quite healthy. We work the best for seals that would otherwise not have much of a chance.
So the majority of seals that end up at the Explorer Seal Sanctuary are usually rescued when they're under a few weeks old. And there's a variety of reasons why they might end up there. So first, and probably the most frequent, is actually just disturbance from crowds on the beach. And the mothers get scared off and then they abandon the pup. Second, we've also had cases of dog attacks. Third, they might be infested with ticks or worms. And finally, they might just be underweight because they're not managing to forage very well and so need some help.
The first seal was brought to Explorers in 1989. We have since then rescued and returned to the sea over 500 seals.
When the seals come in to explore us, obviously we want to get them back out into the wild and we want to do it as quickly as possible. We had Diggory last year, really quick. He came in, was eating fish super fast. Within a couple of months he was in the pool and then a couple of months later he was released. So that's really what we want, the shortest amount of time spent in captivity, because we don't want them to get used to humans. We don't want them to think that, associate us with their food. So the sooner they get out there, the sooner they can get back to being a seal. Obviously, if we've got seals in the hospital already, it's a big concern that we don't want things to spread from seal to seal. The two biggest viruses that we're concerned about is distemper virus and the other one is seal pox. It's another virus that can spread very easily between them and we need to treat them as quickly as possible. Some of the wounds that you get on the face from the dog bites, there's a problem that you could get bacterial infection, so we have to be on that straight away.
So when we get calls about seal pups that are on their own on their beach, we will make a quick assessment based on their body condition, if they've got any injuries, if they're severely underweight, that sort of thing. In those cases we would generally act a lot quicker. If they look otherwise well and healthy, we will put them on a watch list. That means that we'll go and check on them again in 24 hours and we will then review the situation again. Just to make the best decision about whether or not mum is coming back for them, if they need to come in to us for some help.
Seals face a number of threats from human disturbance, pollution, how our climates are changing. So we need to protect them for these reasons. But in addition to that, they also serve as good indicators as into the health of our oceans overall. So it's also really important to have these species present so that we know that our oceans are doing well.
So when seal pups arrive at Explorers, we first get them a health check. We get a vet out to see them very quickly and we'll do things like take their weight, their temperature, that sort of thing, and we'll continually monitor those for the first few days. So we'll go just now and give Puppy some fluids. That'll be just fluids and glucose for the rest of today. That helps the kind of really sickly looking pups perk up pretty quickly and start to build in tomorrow some fish soup into that as well. Once she's eaten by herself and about 10-15 kilos, we'll move her out to the pool. That's where they get their chance then to learn what it's like to be a seal again. They have to learn to feed themselves, compete with other seals, and then from there it's usually a couple of months, and we get them up to our release weight. We're looking for about 30 kilos, and everything else to be fine. That's when we'll be looking to release them. So hopefully this pup doesn't take too long, but she will eventually be released back into the wild, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Over the last year and a half, we've managed to release and track 17 harbour seals. So the tags that we use are called GPS phone tags, and they are basically a kind of glorified mobile phone that's super hardy and waterproof. We attach the tags to the seal using a fast-acting super glue, which we put on the back of the head, and the tag will stay here for several months, but when the seal molts, the tag will just drop off and then the seal will no longer have a tag attached. In terms of how they do after they release, we're getting some really nice data. We now know that they're able to dive immediately to depths of over 30 metres and sometimes up to 150 metres. The durations of their dives are usually between 3 and 5 minutes, which is good. And from the accelerometer that we have on some of the tags, we know that they are making the kind of head movements associated with catching fish. In addition, because we're getting tracks of up to 6 months and sometimes even longer, we know the seals are surviving for at least this long. And this is really promising because it just supports the work of the rehabilitation team here in Explorers Seal Sanctuary. If you see a seal on the beach, our advice is leave it alone. Give it plenty of space, at least 100 metres really. Typically the animals are probably just resting, the mum's at sea foraging, and if you're around crowding, this might prevent the mother coming back and that can result in abandonment. If you have a dog, can you keep it on the lead? And then finally, if you do think the seal's ill, then I would phone in to the rescue centre in Northern Ireland. That's Explorers Seal Sanctuary. You've got the Irish Seal Rescue Centre as well in Southern Ireland, and those guys will advise you what to do. So in terms of the movements and behaviours, we've been getting some really nice results. So of the 17 individuals that we have tracked so far, we've actually seen a huge amount of variability in where they go. Some individuals stayed very local, and this is kind of what we expected based on what we know from adults. However, what was surprising to us was that a number of the seals actually made huge explorations and went much further than we anticipated. So we had individuals travel across the Irish Sea to North England and Wales and even Scotland, whilst other seals followed the coast around Ireland. And this was something really exciting because it wasn't something we expected. And so together this information is really useful to both conservationists, management teams, but also policymakers, and it can help them to improve the efforts in protecting our oceans and ensure for a more sustainable future.